Yeah.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Welcome to the members, staff, and to the authorities' guests today, if there are any on, to this 19 May special meeting of the board. It's a pleasure to have the members on today. Thank you, all of you in advance of the actual work of the meeting for taking the time to join us today. I know it's difficult, and I promise that this will not be a long meeting. Because we are doing it both telephonically and we're Zooming and whatever the other things, Teams, whatever else we do, it is necessary that there be certain legal notices read into the record. Sarah Richards is going to do that for us. Sarah, if you will take it away.
Okay, and then I will read the roll and turn it back over to you.
Thank you.
Result of the ongoing public health emergency related to COVID-19, Executive Order 202.1 as extended authorizes public boards to meet remotely and to take authorized actions without permitting public in-person access to meetings. The public must have the ability to view or listen to the proceedings, and the meetings must be recorded and transcribed. Accordingly, an audio and video recording of today's meeting will be accessible from DASNY's website within 2 days, and proceedings will be transcribed and posted as soon as practicable under the circumstances. For additional information regarding the emergency declaration or the executive order, you can refer to the DASNY website. And I will now call the roll. We have with us today our board members, our board chair, Al Carney, vice chair, John Johnson. Other members are Tracy Raleigh, Janice McKinney, Beryl Snyder, Jerry Romsky, Wellington Chen, Adrian Swazerski, Jonathan Gardner, and Beryl Snyder. From DASNY staff, we have Paul Koopman, Kim Ellis, Ricardo Salomon, Kathy Ebert, Caroline Griffin, Gerard Klauser, Dina Amodio, Jeff Gordon, Matt Bergen, David Ostrander, Deb Fasser, Diane Folletti, Maria Carrasco, Alex Sardine, and myself, Sarah Richards. And from our bond counsel firms, we have Eileen Heitzler, Robert James, and Natalia Pearson-Farrar. And with that, Mr. Chair, I will turn it back over to you.
Ms. Richards, thank you very, very much. I often forget to do this. The magic that is required to make this all work is so far beyond my comprehension that I don't even try to understand it. The combination of visual, audio, and probably in some cases just visual. That magic is beyond my capacity to understand. But I want to thank the staff people who make it work for us. And because I forget to do that, I thought I'd do it at the beginning of the meeting this time, this special meeting. We'll get directly to the agenda. Our first order of business is the transcript from the 5 May meeting. The members have all had a chance to take a look at it. Are there any suggested revisions? Are there any questions about the transcript? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please, to approve it?
So moved.
Thank you very much. Is there a second? I'm sorry, was that you, Adrian? Or was that you, Wellington?
It's me, Wellington.
Okay, thank you. And the second?
You got it, Al.
Thank you very much. Rather than asking for ayes, I'll do it the way I have been doing this. Are there any objections to the motion as offered and to the minutes as presented? Hearing none, are there any abstentions from that vote? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously, and the transcript is approved. The second order of business is the Finance Committee report. Mr. Romsky,
Yes,
great meeting
you.
you had yesterday. It's a great meeting you had yesterday. Thank you very much.
From the vehicle being driven. But yes, thank you.
But you're being careful. Well, you're not driving.
No, I wasn't driving. No. As you can see, I have my sunglasses on for.
Well,
anyway,
I can't see, but that's okay.
Anyway, so the Finance Committee committee met yesterday afternoon. First up was the adoption of the meeting minutes from the May 4th meeting of the Finance Committee meeting. Those meeting minutes were adopted. Then we advanced to discuss 3 new financings. One was Iona College. That is related to its, or generally related to its purchase of Concordia College. It also had a refunding piece. After a limited discussion, we recommend that be approved at today's board meeting. That was followed up by the discussion on the Long Island University financing, which generally is being used to help the university deal with the problems created by the pandemic. We also recommend that be approved at today's full board meeting. And last up was the NYU financing, which is being used to generally reimburse or assist in the construction of various NYU facilities. And also there was a small refunding piece. And again, we recommend that be approved at today's full board meeting. And unless anyone has any questions or concerns, that's going to conclude my report, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Mr. Wronski, thank you very much. Hearing no questions or comments for the Finance Committee Chair, will go directly to the Vice President, who is standing in today. Thank you very much, Paul. In the absence of the President, who is attending a graduation today. I wanted to get that into the record. It's one of the reasons we do all of this work is family, and he is off with family this morning. Mr. Koopman, if you would take it away.
Well, we're going to get right into the financings. To start with, sorry, apologies.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine, Paul.
Yep. Who do we have starting actually on our end?
Mr. Vice President, this is Matt Bergen.
I'll be giving. Yep, I didn't see it. I apologize. Yep.
I'm going to give a brief update on the EHS Towers LLC, and then I'm going to hand it over to Eileen and Natalia.
Thank you.
So good morning, everyone. Just a brief update to comment on the recent information in the transaction summary update. We continue to work on obtaining a policy of municipal bond insurance. There's ongoing dialogue with those solicited, and we do expect to hear back shortly with regard to a premium. But I want to make the point that it is expected that this transaction will include a policy of municipal bond insurance as security. That is the plan of finance. Also, the insurers have been provided with various bond documents, including the support agreement with CUNY. And the support agreement with CUNY is substantially in the same form as the one from the original transaction in 2005. And just one other note, the PACB meeting is scheduled for this afternoon. And now I would like to hand the presentation over to Eileen and Natalia. Thank you.
Before you do that, Matt.
Yes.
Do I understand then that if municipal bond insurance is not delayed or somehow is not available, you all bring this back to the board?
That's correct, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Just for the record, Matt, I just wanted to get that in. Thank you. Eileen, are you there?
I am.
So, then please, the floor is yours, or Natalia's, or however you all work that out.
I'm going to start and then hand off to Natalia. So we are requesting that you adopt the EHS Towers LLC CUNY Student Housing Project Subordinate Revenue Bond Resolution and a related series resolution. Just a little history and background. In 2005, the authority issued bonds to finance the construction of a new student residence facility at City College, which is the CUNY campus. And I was honored to be part of that financing. The financing was a little bit unique for DASNY. It was structured as essentially a project financing in which the project revenues were expected to pay operating expenses, debt service, fund reserves, pay fees, et cetera. And in addition, CUNY provided and continues to provide a support agreement, as Matt just described, pursuant to which it agrees to make up shortfalls for operating expenses and debt service. The borrower under the 2005 loan agreement, so again, the original deal was 05, was an entity called Educational Housing Services, Inc., which is an eligible borrower listed under the DASNY Act. The intent from the beginning was for EHS to transfer all of its rights and responsibilities to a bankruptcy remote subsidiary. And in 2008, EHS formed such a bankruptcy remote single member LLC. The DASNY Act was amended to allow EHS to transfer all its rights and responsibilities to that LLC, which it then did. So 05 was for construction with the HS, and then in 08, they formed and transferred the rights and responsibilities to the LLC. The project was constructed on land owned by DASNY. It's being leased to the LLC pursuant to a ground lease. Project's been in operation for over a decade. But since the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, because its impact on in-person learning, the project's been generating and may continue to generate for a period of time reduced revenues. Therefore, CUNY and the LLC are seeking to reduce the debt service burden for the next few years and have requested that the authority authorize and issue bonds now in 2021 in order to refund the principal and interest that's coming due and payable on the 2005 bonds, on the existing bonds, for approximately 2.5 years. And in addition, to fund the interest on the new bonds, on the 2021 bonds, again for approximately 2.5 years. In other words, to finance a debt service holiday for approximately 2.5 years. It's expected that the maturities dates for the 2021 bonds, for the new bonds, will be after the scheduled maturity dates for the 05 bonds, so that there's only a slight increase in debt service in the years when the 05 bonds are issued. That is, there's only interest payable on the 2021 bonds. So it's a slight increase in annual debt service, but the debt service would then extend for a few years after that to pay the maturities of the 2021 bonds. It's proposed that the 2021 bonds will be issued as subordinate bonds, payable with project revenues that remain after paying operating expenses and debt service on the existing 05 bonds. So while the 05 bonds remain outstanding, project revenues will be continued to be deposited with the trustee for the 05 bonds. They'll flow through a waterfall to pay operating expenses, to pay debt service on the 05 bonds, to pay certain fees. And then before the new bonds were issued, I mean, in the existing deal, any surplus is available to be transferred to CUNY. So once we issue the 2021 bonds, instead of the surplus after paying operating expenses and debt service on the 05 bonds being available to go to CUNY, that surplus will go over to the trustee for the subordinate 2021 bonds, and will flow through a waterfall to pay debt service on the 2021 bonds, pay some subordinated fees, and then at the bottom of that waterfall, any surplus would be available to be transferred to CUNY. When the 05 bonds are no longer outstanding, as I mentioned before, the idea is to schedule the maturities of the 2021s to come after the 05s. So once the 05s are paid, then the waterfall within the 2021 resolution takes over, and the project revenues would be directly deposited with the trustee for the 2021 bonds, and would flow as they do now to pay operating expenses, debt service on the 2021 bonds, certain fees, reserves, et cetera. And again, the surplus any surplus remaining after that would be available to be transferred to CUNY. As Matt mentioned, and to emphasize, the 2021 bonds, like the 05 bonds, will be secured by a new support agreement from CUNY, pursuant to which CUNY will agree to pay debt service on the 2021 bonds if project revenues are insufficient. And again, this support agreement is expected to be substantially the same as the existing 05 support agreement for the 05 bonds. And again, as Matt mentioned, it's expected that the bonds will be insured by a financial guarantee insurance policy. Solicitations of interest have been sent out to the insurers. We haven't received the final responses, but neither CUNY nor the project have a rating. And so the rating on the bonds would be a rating based on the insurance policy. With that, I will hand off to Natalia.
Welcome, Natalia.
Good morning, and good morning, board members. We are requesting that the board adopt the EHS Towers LLC CUNY Student Housing Project Subordinate Revenue Bond Resolution. And this bond resolution is a general resolution providing for the issuance from time to time of subordinate revenue bonds, notes, or other obligations of the authority to finance or refinance costs of the project, pay cost of issuance, fund reserves, refund bonds issued under the subordinate resolution, and refund other bonds or indebtedness issued with respect to the project. Proceeds of any bonds issued under the subordinate resolution will be lent to the LLC pursuant to a new loan agreement. The subordinate resolution will also provide for the establishment of funds and accounts, contain provisions relating to amendments, events of default, remedies, defeasance, and the other provisions that you normally see in DASNY general bond resolutions. And it'll also provide for the flow of funds that Eileen described for project revenues. Bonds issued under the subordinate resolution will be payable solely from and secured by a pledge of the following. Number one is the proceeds from the sale of such bonds. Two is the payments under the loan agreement and payments made by CUNY pursuant to the support agreement that Eileen mentioned, as well as earnings on any funds held under subordinate resolution. The third source is the security interest in the project revenues. And last are the funds and accounts established by the subordinate resolution, except for an arbitrage fund. This pledge constitutes a first lien on these sources, subordinate only to the lien granted with respect to the 2005 bonds. Similarly, the security interest in the project revenues granted by EHS under the new loan agreement is subordinate to the security interest under the 2005 loan agreement. In addition to the subordinate resolution, we are requesting that the board adopt a series resolution, which is entitled the Series 2021 Resolution Authorizing EHS Towers LLC, CUNY Student Housing Project Subordinate Revenue Bond, Series 2021, in an amount not exceeding $19 million. And the series resolution authorizes the issuance of the 2021 bonds to provide funds to refund up to 3 years of debt service on the 2005 bonds and pay up to 3 years of interest on the 2021 bonds, as well as to pay costs of issuance and fund any required reserves. We expect that the 2021 bonds will be fixed rate obligations maturing after the 2005 bonds are paid. RBC will be the underwriter for these bonds. The Series 2021 resolution delegates to any authorized officer of the authority the power to determine, among other things, the principal amount of 2021 bonds to be issued up to the authorized aggregate principal amount of $19 million, the maturity date or dates, and principal amount of each maturity, provided that no 2021 bond will mature later than 19 years from the August 1st next succeeding the date of issuance of the 2021 bonds, the interest rate or rates of the 2021 bonds, provided that the true interest cost on any 2021 bonds that are issued as fixed rate bonds, which we expect will be the case, shall not exceed 10%. The redemption price or redemption prices, if any, and the redemption terms, if any, subject to limitations described in the letter of bond counsel to the board, and the provisions relating to a municipal bond insurance policy for the 2021 bonds. The series resolution also authorized officers of the authority to execute and deliver a purchase contract, which will be by and between the authority and the underwriter, prepare and distribute a preliminary official statement, and prepare, execute, and deliver a final official statement in connection with the sale of the bonds, execute and deliver such amendments as may be necessary to the ground lease, and execute and deliver any and all documents and instruments, and do and cause to be done any and all acts and things necessary or advisable in connection with the offering, sale, and issuance of the 2021 bonds, and to carry out the transactions contemplated by the Series 2021 resolution. And that's it for me. If you have any questions, please let us know.
Thank you very much. Are there questions from the members? Hearing none. Matt, I guess I have a question. We are using the proceeds of this issuance to fund a debt service suspension on the 2005 issuance for a period that may be as long as 3 years. Do I understand that correctly?
That's correct, Mr. Chairman.
That being the case, is this I don't know that I've seen this before. I'm sure it's not unusual, but is this an unusual transaction in that regard?
In light of the pandemic and institutions that have project-based financings, especially with dormitory income as the revenue,
Sure.
I don't think this is atypical. It is similar to the transaction we executed with the FIT Student Housing Corporation.
Is it
And
okay?
again,
All right.
revenues down, obviously because of the pandemic.
Thank you very much, Matt. And Natalia, Eileen, thank you both very much. Are there questions? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please, to approve the transaction?
So moved.
I'll
Thank you
move.
very much, Wellington. Is there a second? Beryl, is that you?
Carol, I'll second.
Thank you so much. Are there any objections to the resolution or to the motion as presented? Hearing none, are there any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion passes, the resolution passes unanimously, and we can move on to the next transaction. Mr. Koopman.
Thank you. Behind tab number 4 is the Iona College transaction summary update with Gerard Clauser presenting.
Thank you, Paul. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, DASNY staff and guests, good morning. I just want to touch one item prior to going over the review here. I want to make it understood that Alex Sardine, a new hire who, Alex worked for us before. I think he was welcomed back and the board was advised of his being rehired, was a significant contributor to this report. And, he just got in the door and hit the ground running and really contributed very significantly to the Iona College. I think it won't be long before he's doing these presentations himself. So I just wanted to make sure that Alex was given credit and acknowledged for his contributions because they were significant. So,
Mr. Clauser, thank you very much for doing that. Alex, we of course know you, and now we're getting to know your work. Thank you so much for your contributions to this proposed financing.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
The transaction summary and transaction report present a resolution to proceed for fixed and/or variable rate, tax exempt and/or taxable bonds to be sold in either a negotiated offering or a private placement in an amount not to exceed $60 million, with maturities not to exceed 31 years on behalf of Iona College. The tax exempt financing will include the purchase of Concordia College campus and the related costs of issuance. The taxable issuance will include the advance refunding of the outstanding 2012A tax exempt bonds on July 1, 2022. We have allowed room in our not to exceed amount to include the potential refunding of the 2012B bonds if the market warrants. Currently, the 2012Bs are not in the money, so they're not included, but we want to ensure that should they come into the market, that we have the flexibility to take those bonds out. The financing history for Iona goes back to 1972. Only bonds currently outstanding with the Dormitory Authority are the 2012 A and B bonds. The security package is expected to include a pledge of revenues and a mortgage on property. The ratings, Moody's rating is Baa2, S&P rating is BBB. Both ratings are stable. The refunding is expected to result in net present value savings estimated at about $860,000, or 5.6% of the bonds being refunded. The term of the refunding is not expected to exceed the terms of the bonds being refunded. The refunding will result in level debt service from 2033 forward, dropping from in excess of a $7 million annual debt service down to $5 million annually. The new money component will purchase the Concordia campus, which is conveniently located 3 miles from Iona College. Iona plans to use the college as a traditional academic facility with ordinary complement of extracurricular activities, such as performing arts, club sports, and varsity athletics. The academic focus on the campus will be on health sciences, particularly the recent launch of the occupational therapy and nursing programs at Iona. Regarding Iona's operations, Iona has a history of positive operating margins, including an operating gain in 2020 of $212,000, a positive in light of the COVID-19 pandemic impact on higher education. Full-time equivalent enrollment dipped in the fall of 2019 and slightly rebounded in the fall of 2020. The school is aware of the enrollment issue and has hired a VP of enrollment management in order to address the concern. The pandemic fell in the middle of this plan and unfortunately impaired the results. Iona has added $50 million in campus improvements, including an entrepreneurial and innovation institute, renovations of the School of Business, and additions of health sciences majors in order to increase enrollment. The college reported expendable resources to long-term debt of 1.6 to 1 for fiscal year 2020, indicating sufficient expendable net assets to cover its outstanding debt. Since 2016, the college has an average debt service coverage ratio of 3.7 to 1. Staff recommends the board adopt a resolution proceed for a bond issue in an amount not to exceed $60 million with a term not to exceed 31 years on behalf of Iona College. Mr. Chairman.
Gerard, thank you very much. Are there questions for Gerard on this proposed transaction summary? Hearing none, then may I have a motion, please, to approve it?
Janice McKinney, I so move.
Janice, thank you very much. Is there a second?
I'll second. It's Beryl.
Beryl, thank you. Are there any objections to the resolution and or to the motion as presented? Hearing none. Are there any abstentions from the vote? Hearing none. The motion is approved and the transaction is approved unanimously. Thank you all very much. Thank you, Gerard.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and the board.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Mr. Koopman, we're going on to Long Island University.
Yes, behind tab number 5 is Long Island University transaction summary update with David Ostrander presenting. David?
Thanks, Paul. Good morning, everyone. The transaction report provided to the members presents one or more series of tax-exempt and/or taxable, fixed and/or variable rate bonds in an amount not to exceed $85 million, with maturities not to exceed 20 years on behalf of Long Island University. Proceeds from this financing will be used for refunding of all or a portion of the LIU subseries 2006-A1 and 2006-A2 bonds, as well as the series 2012 bonds that were all issued by DASNY. The series 2006A bonds were initially issued as variable rate demand bonds and have been reoffered a number of times over the years, first due to a bond insurance downgrade and later due to letter of credit downgrades. Both subseries were most recently privately placed, the 2006A1 bonds with Capital One and the 2006A2 bonds with TD Bank. Both the A1 and the A2 bonds are currently in a variable rate mode and are subject to mandatory tender on August 1st of this year. The publicly offered fixed rate series 2012 bonds will also be included in the proposed refunding. These bonds are callable on or after September 1st of 2022. The proposed transaction will allow the university to place these series 2006A1, 2006A2, and 2012 bonds all with a single purchaser through final maturity, while also providing savings on the 2012 refunding. The university plans to current refund the 2006A1 and A2 bonds with tax-exempt variable rate bonds to be privately placed with Capital One. In addition, the university intends to advance refund the series 2012 bonds with taxable fixed rate bonds also to be privately placed with Capital One. It's expected that the refunding bonds will be held by Capital One through final maturity in 2036. As far as savings, assuming current market conditions, a total net present value savings in the range of 1.2 million or 5.4% of the refunded bonds is expected from the refunding of the series 2012 bonds. As far as security, the bonds are expected to be secured by a pledge of revenues of the university. The existing debt service reserve fund for the series 2012 bonds is expected to be released and used towards the proposed refunding. In addition, the existing mortgages will be released for all bonds to be refunded. Capital One will not require a debt service reserve fund or a mortgage as security for the proposed issuance. Some additional information on LIU. The university is rated Baa2 with a positive outlook from Moody's and BBB+ with a stable outlook from S&P. When looking at enrollment trends, while total headcount is down over a 5-year period, enrollment began to stabilize prior to the pandemic due to programmatic changes implemented by the university. As part of its 2030 strategic plan, LIU has begun to shift from a regional commuter campus to a national teaching and research university. And the university has launched several new programs in fields such as health science, artificial intelligence, and sports management. This programmatic shift has positively impacted student demand, with applications exceeding 13,000 annually. And the 14,540 applications in the fall of 2018 was an all-time high for the university. As a result, management expects enrollment trends to improve over the next 3 to 5 years as these new programs are established and drive additional demand. When looking at operations, LIU has posted operating surpluses in each of the last 5 fiscal years. Since fiscal year 2016, operating margins have averaged 23.7 million or 8% annually. Positive operating performance has contributed to capital accumulation and improving liquidity over the last 5 years. Total net assets have increased by 176 million over 5 years, reaching 529.3 million at fiscal year end 2020. And lastly, debt service coverage was 6.1 to 1 for fiscal year 2020, which is well in excess of the DASNY median of 1.9 to 1. Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Ostrander, thank you very much. Are there questions for David? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please, to approve the transaction?
So moved.
Thank you, Wellington. Is there a second?
I'll second. This is Tracy.
Tracy, thank you very much. Are there any objections to the motion as presented, to the resolution as presented? Are there any abstentions from the vote? Hearing none, the motion is approved and the transaction is approved unanimously. This is, I always get this wrong. This is a new financing. So this matter will come back, I gather, it's been approved. It'll come back to the board for a final action?
That's correct, Mr. Chairman. The expectation is we'll bring it back to the June meeting for adoption of documents.
Thank you very much, David. Mr. Koopman, we're going on to New York University.
Yes. Finally, behind tab number 6 is the New York University transaction summary update with David Ostrander again presenting. David?
Thanks, Paul. This transaction report provided to the members presents one or more series of tax-exempt and/or taxable, fixed and/or variable rate bonds in an amount not to exceed 410 million, with maturities not to exceed 31 years on behalf of New York University. Proceeds from this proposed issuance will be used to finance the costs associated with numerous construction and renovation projects located throughout the NYU system, totaling approximately 344.4 million. Many of these projects have been financed by previous DASNY bond issuances. Just of note, some of the larger projects include construction of a mixed-use building at 181 Mercer Street, which will include a modern athletic facility, new classrooms, performing arts space, and student and faculty housing, as well as improvements to facilities located at the university's Brooklyn campus, including 370 J Street and the Tandon School of Engineering. The second piece of this financing is a refunding of a portion of the university's Series 2016A bonds. It's anticipated that the university will refund 50 million of stepped coupon bonds that are maturing on July 1st of 2041. These bonds are callable on or after July 1st of this year. The stepped coupon bonds are currently interest only through 2039 with principal payments in 2040 and 2041. The interest rate essentially steps up every 5 years beginning this July. It's expected that the refunding bonds will be issued as fixed rate with principal amortizing over the full 20 years. And assuming current market conditions, the total net present value savings in the range of 13.2 million or 26% of the refunded bonds is expected from the refunding of the Series 2016A stepped coupon bonds. As far as security, the university has a rating of AA2 from Moody's with a stable outlook and AA- with a stable outlook from S&P. So as in previous NYU transactions, it's anticipated that the loan agreement will be a general unsecured obligation of the university. A few additional points on NYU. Positive demand and enrollment trends have continued in recent years. Despite the impact of the pandemic, demand for the university continued to increase and overall enrollment remains stable for fall of 2020. For the fall of 2020, the university received 80,210 applications for first-time full-time freshmen, which is the 13th year in a row of record applications. Total headcount enrollment reached 52,775, which is an increase of 4.4% over 5 years. The university's overall revenue mix is diverse. For fiscal year 2020, 29% of the university's total operating revenues came from net tuition and fees. And finally, when looking at the balance sheet, total net assets have increased by 1.07 billion since 2016, reaching 6.2 billion at fiscal year end 2020, which is mainly the result of fundraising, grant awards, and positive investment returns. Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Ostrander, thank you very much. Are there questions for David? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please, to approve this transaction?
So
I
moved.
will move. This is Beryl.
Thank you, Beryl. Second, please.
Seconded, Wellington.
Wellington, thank you very much. Are there objections to the transaction, to the motion as presented? Hearing none, are there any abstentions from the vote? Hearing none, the motion is approved unanimously. The transaction will go forward. David, thank you again very much. I think the authority is extraordinarily fortunate to have all of the clients that we've considered this morning. This is an amazing financial engine and an extraordinary education and higher education institution, and we're fortunate to have New York University in the portfolio. Is there any other business to come before this meeting? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please, to adjourn?
I will move. It's Beryl.
Beryl, thank you. Second?
I will second.
All right, sir. We stand adjourned. Thank you all very much. Thank you for joining us this